Meeting for July 14th will come to order. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Abraham.
Present.
Commissioner Galt.
Present.
Commissioner Rhodes.
Here.
Commissioner Wilson.
Present.
Mayor Kaler.
Present. Is Pastor Joel Cawley here tonight? Hi, Joel. Sorry I missed you earlier. Pastor Joel Cawley is going to do our invocation tonight. He's with the Relevant Church here in Paducah. And he will come forward and do that. And then our Pledge of Allegiance is Claire Kelly, and she's a Paducah Tillman High School junior. She'll come up right after the invocation. Pastor Cawley, you'll stand, please.
Thank you. Let's bow our heads. Father, we thank you, Lord, for this incredible day. We thank you, Lord, for this great city of Paducah and all that you've blessed us with. God, thank you for these commissioners and Mayor Keller and, Lord, the leadership that you've given us. They're providing that we can continue to move forward and, Lord, and to be innovative and continue to do all that you've called us to do. I pray you just bless this meeting. Let us get much accomplished. And, God, in the mighty name of Jesus, we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
Under God, indivisible, with
liberty and justice for all.
City Manager, are there any additions or deletions?
There are none.
Okay. So tonight, it's my pleasure and honor to have Glenn and Mary Higdon here tonight, and we're going to do a signing of the hotel development agreement. If Glenn and Mary will come forward, please. Oh, I can sit here. No, you all stay where you are. Okay. So one of you sit here and one here. So I have two. We'll be signing two of these.
Same one that I've seen.
Yeah. We didn't switch anything. You married? Okay, and I've asked the commissioners to sign tonight, so I'm going to pass this over to Commissioner Abraham and Commissioner Galt. And Commissioner Rhodes and Commissioner Wilson. And you all can have that one. Yeah. This one. So we'll have a copy, and Glenn and Mary will have a copy. So it's very exciting to have this new hotel development in Paducah and what it means to downtown Paducah, what it means to Paducah's economy, and what it means to us for tourism and for the future business that we will have at the convention center. So I just want to thank you again, Glenn. Look forward to working with you.
Appreciate it.
Mary? Thank you. And do you have anything you want to say tonight? Not really.
I think some of your supporters are out in the audience.
They're reporters.
It's your
Audience, you're some of your supporters.
I would just say that the last time I was here, there was a couple of questions, I think, from reporters, maybe based on past experience. Do you have your financing in place? And at the time, we had applied, and I also said that we had applied for the franchise. Since that time, both of those have been approved. I have all the investors in place, so we're just waiting for our engineers and architect to finish their job, and we'll start as quickly as that happens.
Thank you so much. Enjoy your rest of the evening here. Thank you. So we have a proclamation tonight, and this was a request of Pastor Joel Cawley with the relevant church. Would you like to talk about what you would like to plan for Paducah with your church? Just a short explanation of what you're trying to do here in Paducah, and then I'll read the proclamation.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. So basically, we want to create one day a year that our church is going to start, and it will be this Saturday, but one day a year that everybody will come together and just love on Paducah, whether it's picking up trash or doing remodel projects or giving out free bottles of water or free ice cream in the park, and just one day where we just give back and have an annual, what we're calling, and we want to establish Love Paducah Day. And so our church is, we've joined together, and so we have about 250 of our members this Saturday. It's just going to go back. We're going to help do some of the flood cleanup. We're going to, we've partnered with some local businesses, going to give away free food. We're surprising people in grocery stores and paying for groceries, and just being the hands and what we call being the hands and feet of Jesus, and just loving on people. And so we just want to be a part of a church and a local community that gives back and continues to just love on this city and make it the best that we possibly can. So I appreciate the
Do you
opportunity.
need any volunteers for this?
It's whoever wants to come in and help be a part of this. And so, if anybody wants to come in and help volunteer with us, we're going to meet at Relevant Church at 8:30 this Saturday morning, and we'll be all throughout the city.
Give them the address.
Yes, 3425 Oak Street. And it's in the former, it used to be the Energy Fitness Midtown location, so we're in that gym. And so we've turned that into our church. And so we'll be meeting there this Saturday morning at 8:30, and we have many different projects all throughout the city that we're going to be focused on, and just giving back. And the Bible says that we're the salt of the earth, and salt makes things better. And so we just want to make it better, and just show the city that we love them and just serve them any way we can.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
So the proclamation tonight, whereas families across our city have been engulfed by waves of job loss, economic hardship, and suffering that have swept through in recent years, and whereas Paducah has remained an innovative leader for Western Kentucky and continues to influence the culture and climate of this region, and whereas the local church believes in the investment in the heart of Paducah to bring betterment and prosperity, and whereas one act of charity today promises hope for a thriving tomorrow and the enrichment of generations to come. And whereas one act of a church family that actively submerges into the needs of a community shines as a beam of hope that a body of believers can and will bring peace and goodness to its surroundings. And whereas God can bring healing and restoration to the anguished and broken lives in our city through the body of Christ, now therefore I, Gail Kaler, Mayor of Paducah, do hereby proclaim July 18th, 2015 as Love Paducah Day in Paducah and encourage citizens, businesses, and organizations to celebrate people and demonstrate godly love and kindness to one another and to help our city reach its fullest potential. And this was planned a few weeks ago after a visit with Reverend Colley, and we had no idea that these words would be so poignant today. Thank you. So we'll go on to our meeting. Commissioner Abraham, please.
I move that the readings of the minutes for June 23rd and June 25th, 2015 City Commission meeting be waived and that the minutes of said meetings prepared by the city clerk be approved as written.
Second.
Okay. Tonight, I would like to bring, we have to have a vote on that first. Thank you.
Commissioner Abraham.
Aye.
Mr. Galt.
Aye.
Commissioner Rhodes.
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson.
Aye.
Mayor Kaler.
Aye. Tonight, we have Scott wrong person, Scott Darnell. They're both great people. We have Scott Darnell here with us, and he's our Paducah Economic Development Director, and he's here tonight to give us some really good news. Thank you, Scott. We can stand some good news.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. If I may give you a couple updates before we make the announcement, I'll move quickly. One, we have new leadership at PED. Our board chair has changed. Stan Eckenberg, who's the president of CSI, is taking over board chair July 1 and is bringing a lot of energy and acumen to the position and looking forward to moving that forward. We've recognized over the past months the importance of the river industry. We've made changes to our bylaws. The new president of the Riverport, Bill Miller, has been put on our board, and also Kayla Shahadi, one of the managers at Ingram's, on our board now. So we're not only saying the river industry is important, we're looking for more broader input into policy and other ways we continue to help grow that industry. Another thing is we've moved away from an executive board format monthly. We've expanded the board to the larger full board. That's important for a cross-representation of education and other things. And moving forward with our new strategy, which I'll touch on, we needed a broader level of support. So we're going to move the organization probably faster than it's ever moved before, and wanted broader support from the community doing that and moving it forward. We're finalizing a relationship with a strategist to create a holistic approach to economic development. One of the things we've heard since I've been here is we'd like more input into the future of the economy, and that's not only come from the city and the county, but groups throughout the community, and we agreed with that. It's moving forward with that. We'll be taking a closer look at our targeted industries or stakeholder input, what best practices we're using, the importance of workforce development, marketing communications, and staff and organization will be developed under a metric system. If you're not measuring it, are you actually being effective with it? Using public sector dollars, we have to do better than the private sector. So metrics only for staff as well as the organization will be developed. An exciting part is workforce development. The scenario is you need jobs. Absolutely right. We need the right jobs. We have a surplus of jobs currently opening in this community between $10 and $15 an hour. We need to find a way to fill those jobs, change the skill gaps, as well as addressing industries. We have a current program with 22 RadTech candidates with the college. It was a 12-week program. We're more than halfway through that. These positions will start off at close to $60,000 a year. We have an information technology program being developed to fill the need locally with one of our key industry partners. Those programs will look at jobs starting at a minimum of $45,000, and we've developed another approach for possibly 2 other industry sectors using the same model. So recruitment's important, but let's take advantage of the opportunities we're growing here. We can only do that because of the great investments over the years with the community college and Murray State here. We're moving forward to a regional marketing-based system with our partners in the region. For once, we'll have a true message for Western Kentucky and the attributes to deliver to us. And building on the excited development of the hotel and 3 restaurants you've announced in the past few weeks, there's a new restaurant with significant investment we know is coming to the mall soon, as well as a new national entertainment venue that will be announcing at the mall soon, as well as some other announcements we think will be forthcoming. Tonight, we're looking at a new addition to our corporate community. And let me first point out how we not only followed the protocol of the policy, but followed the protocol of how economic development should occur. And that's listening to the customer and gearing the appropriate partners in the community to meet the need for a successful announcement. That occurs that's not the exception, that's the norm. And tonight's an example of that success. Darling Ingredients is a $4 billion company with 10,000 employees globally. They're 130 years old. They're focused on sustainable food, feed, and fuel ingredients. They have purchased, as of the first quarter of 2015, the former U.S. Foods building, which has been vacated since 2012. Initial hiring of this project is going to be 20 to 25 people and growing from there. And back to the support of the community, let me read a comment from their Chief Strategy Officer, John Bullock. Their local plant manager was out of town or would have been here tonight for the announcement. But they say they wanted to express their gratitude for the hard work for the city, county, Paducah Power, and PED. From permitting to assistance with local services, the experience of the community has been terrific. This was a 134,000 square foot facility that needed substantial upgrades to ammonia-based refrigeration system. It required the coordination of the city manager office, which was impeccable. The buildings inspections department could not have been asked for more, as well as a fire code inspection and the other things to convert these facilities to modern technologies, which is being done. Most importantly, it's recognizing that people excel if you allow them to excel. The process we put in place, the partnerships, and the process of economic development is not only working in this community, it's exceeding in this community, or we wouldn't continue having the successes we've had over the past few months, and we'll moving forward. With that being said, reliable power is a big part of this. Consider over 50,000 square feet of the space is conditioned as freezer and refrigeration. And a big part of that come with Paducah Power is not only their reliability, but their flexibility to work with us to make this project a success. We can't do economic development without great partners in the city and the county and Paducah Power. So I'd love Hardy Roberts to come up and say a few comments, please.
We are honored to work with you on that, and there's one thing I could say with Paducah Power is I've had the chairmanship for the past 9.5 months. We have a very reliable system there, and I'm glad to see that recognized. We work with them from the get-go on this, and that is a sizable load. That always makes us happy. That's got a lot of refrigeration there, so they absolutely have to have this reliability, and so we're honored to have been chosen for that. I'm encouraged, it's the second industry that's been located here on my watch, and we frequently work with Scott and their industrial recruitment efforts, and we recognize our role in the economic development of Paducah, and plan to continue that. Thank you.
Thank you. But we appreciate the continued support, and we look forward to coming back soon with more good news. Thank you.
Thank you. That's very good news.
I guess you're going to be sending out more news about it, where to apply for jobs and all of that.
Yeah, the job openings or hiring is just beginning. It's at the Kentucky Career Center. The public release will go out at 6 p.m. in 10 minutes. So they're moving forward. The renovations have been very timely because of the support of the city staff. And again, they couldn't be more happy with the location and want to become a part of the community. And having $4 billion companies with 10,000 employees are great companies that weather recessions and slowdowns in the market, and we only think this opportunity will continue to grow here. So perfect fit for the building, perfect fit for Paducah Power, and great success for the community.
Any questions for Scott? All right. Thank you so much.
Thanks for your support.
Great news.
Okay, we have an appointment tonight. Whereas subject to the approval of the Board of Commissioners, I hereby appoint Nancy Duff as a member of the Board of Adjustment to replace Buford Wilson, who has resigned. This term will expire August 31st, 2016.
Whereas, subject to the approval of the Board of Commissioners, I hereby, second page, I don't have one at all. I move that the Board of Commissioners approve the action of Mayor Kaler in appointing Nancy Duff as member of the Board of Adjustment.
Second.
City Clerk?
Commissioner Abraham?
Aye.
Commissioner Galt?
Aye.
Commissioner Rhodes?
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson?
Aye.
Mayor Kaler?
Aye. Commissioner Galt, please. Commissioner Rhodes, under motions.
Move that the following document proposals and bids be received and filed. Documents: notice of cancellation for the Paducah Board of Commissioners for July 7th, 2015. Performance bond and payment bond for Woodall Companies LLC. Commissioners' deeds 1018 North 14th Street, 2509 Ohio Street, 1904 Clay Street. Deeds of conveyance 533 Madison Street, Bighorn Properties, 1408 through 1410 Broadway, Charles and Sheree Roberts, 1414 Broadway, Doris Properties LLC. Contracts and agreements: extension amendment agreement with Republic Services for solid waste disposal, letter of agreement for the Federal Historic Preservation Grant from Kentucky Heritage Council to create a GIS database, contract for services with Greater Paducah Economic Development Council, hotel development agreement with Paducah Riverfront Hotel LP for development and construction of a hotel in downtown Paducah, agreement with the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, AFL-CIO, Local 1518, ASME for July 1st, 2015 through June 30th, 2018. Third Amendment to the tower option and lease agreement with New Singular Wireless, PSC, LLC, AT&T. Agreement with the Commonwealth of Kentucky Transportation Cabinet for funding of the Paducah Waterfront Development Project. Short form agreement with HDR Engineering for professional services regarding solid waste transfer station. Settlement statement, HUD/1 tax bill request, and written consent resolutions for the purchase of 1414 Broadway for the Paducah Police Department. Declaration of a local emergency for flash flooding at Paducah McCracken County on July 7, 2015. Paducah Waterworks financial highlights for May 2015. GBDC Incorporated financial highlights for years ending June 30th, 2014 and 2013. Barkley Regional Airport Authority financial statements for the years ending June 30th, 2014 and 2013. Proposals for Paducah Planning Department, Smedley Iser, 533 Madison Street. Bighorn Properties LLC. Bids for Paducah Property Planning, 432 Broadway demolition, Cardinal Industrial Installation Company Incorporated and Environmental Abatement Incorporated, which was the low bid. Blue Ridge Manor, 1532 Monroe Street. Low bid was Jim Steele Construction, D&D Construction, and Mitchell Construction, LLC. Bids for Engineering Public Works Department, Compact SUV, Paducah Ford, Linwood Motors. Recommended bidder. New minivan, Landers Ford and Linwood Motors. Linwood recommended bidder. Sewer pumper truck, Jack Doheny Companies, recommended bid.
Second.
City Clerk?
Commissioner Abraham?
Aye.
Commissioner Galt?
Aye.
Commissioner Rhodes?
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson?
Aye.
Mayor Kaler?
Aye. Under municipal orders, Commissioner Wilson, please.
Upon the recommendation of the city manager, the Board of Commissioners of the City of Paducah order that the personnel changes on the attached list be approved.
Second.
Hi, Steve.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. Of note on your list, you may recognize a police officer name and think we've hired this person before, because we have, unfortunately, due to a pressing family issue. He was forced to resign, but all of those things have been resolved, and he's come back, so we're pleased to reoffer him employment with the City of Paducah.
Thank you. Any questions for Steve?
Also some retirements as well.
Mm-hmm.
Marilee Richards, a longtime employee with Parks, is retiring. She'll be a true loss to the city. All of the functions that go on in the city that need permits, that was Marilee's, one of her primary job, among other things she did for us. That'll be a real loss, her expertise in permitting. Also, Gary Edmonds, longtime employee from the Streets Department, is retiring as well.
And fire.
Oh, Brian
Wade.
Wade, more than, you think you gave him a 25-year pin here not too long ago. He's retiring, and another fireman, there's a family move to another state, so so he'll be leaving as well. They've both left already, so several retirements.
Good people.
City Clerk?
Commissioner Abraham,
Aye.
Commissioner Galt,
Aye.
Commissioner Rhodes,
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson,
Aye.
Mayor Kayler.
Aye. Commissioner Abraham, please.
I move that a municipal order entitled, "A Municipal Order Setting 800 Megahertz Radio System Customer User Unit Rate for City and Non-City Users" be adopted.
Second.
Hi, Steve.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners, and City Manager. Obviously, I'm not John Perkins, but the subject matter makes me an obvious choice to stand in for him. What we've got before you is something we talked about in budget, about raising the radio rate that we have in place to help maintain our infrastructure that we have. We've had in place for a good long time. That money has served us well already over the history of our system. In 2007, as an example, we spent $570,000 out of that fund to maintain the radio system that we've been using all this time over the last 24 years. So that money's very beneficial. It's served us well already. The rate has not been increased since 2000, it's maybe 2001. So it's time for an increase. We've got expenditures on the horizon for our infrastructure that we're going to have to maintain, and this is the way to help maintain it. So the schedule that you see there is John is giving everybody time to prepare for this. With the increase, we're at $10.84 now. It's going to go to $12 on October the 1st, and then annually it'll increase for the next few years till it gets to $18.
So that's a smart way to phase it in.
That's a very smart way to phase it in. Allows us that fund to continue to build while we're in the planning phases of looking towards the replacement of our infrastructure. And we've got money in that account now. I think there's about $780,000 in the account now, and it allows the account to continue to grow while we do that planning until we're ready for purchase.
And we have 22 different groups that use those radios.
We do. We have 748 total users on the system. We, the city, are obviously the largest with 370 of those. Our county partners are right behind us at 219. And then we have a good host of individual agency users out there, of which JSA is the largest. I believe John's here tonight. He's a large user of the system as well. So it benefits a large portion of the community, of the agencies that serve the community here, allows us to have interoperability among ourselves, to be able to talk to one another in times of crisis. And with the system being at end of life, replacement parts are no longer available. It's past the end of life of the system. We have to look forward to the replacement of that system to maintain that readiness.
Okay. Any questions for Steve? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
City Clerk?
Commissioner Abraham,
Aye.
Commissioner Galt,
Aye.
Commissioner Rhodes,
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson,
Aye.
Mayor Kayler.
Aye. Commissioner Galt, please.
I move that a municipal order entitled, "A Municipal Order Authorizing the Mayor to Execute a Deed of Conveyance and All Documents Necessary for Acquisition of a Portion of Real Property Located at 5101 Concord Avenue to be used as right-of-way and permanent public utility easement for the Olivet Church Road Improvement Project for and in consideration of $7,000 be adopted."
Second.
City Clerk?
Commissioner Abraham,
Aye.
Commissioner Galt,
Aye.
Commissioner Rhodes,
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson,
Aye.
Mayor Kayler.
Aye. Commissioner Rhodes, please.
I move that a municipal order entitled, "A Municipal Order Authorizing the Mayor to Execute a Deed of Conveyance and All Documents Necessary for Acquisition of a Portion of Real Estate Located at 3341 Olivet Church Road be used as a right-of-way and permanent drainage and public utility easement for the Olivet Church Road Improvement Project, and in consideration of $700 be adopted."
Second.
City Clerk?
Commissioner Abraham,
Aye.
Commissioner Galt,
Aye.
Commissioner Rhodes,
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson,
Aye.
Mayor Kayler.
Aye. So now we have our ordinances introduction. We do not vote on these tonight. We have a first reading and then a second reading at our next meeting. Commissioner Wilson, please.
I move that the Board of Commissioners introduce an ordinance entitled, "An Ordinance Declaring Municipally Owned Real Property Generally Located on Hendron Road and Known as the Star Hill Tank Property Held for the Use and Benefit of the Commissioners of Waterworks of the City of Paducah, DBA Paducah Water, as surplus, and approving the sale and transfer of same." This ordinance is summarized as follows. This ordinance authorizes the City of Paducah, Kentucky, on behalf of Paducah Water, to quitclaim a certain tract of substandard surplus real property, generally known as the Star Hill Tank Property, 1/2 to Watson West and 1/2 to Potter.
Second.
Hi, how are you tonight?
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. When Hendron Water's system was combined with Paducah Water, there were several assets. This is the first of three that you'll hear this evening that are no longer necessary in the system. They've been demolished, and Paducah Water is requesting approval to return those properties to the original parcels from which they came when they were originally obtained by Hendron Water District.
So that is the first of two or three here.
Yes.
Commissioner Abraham.
I move that the Board of Commissioners introduce an ordinance entitled, "An Ordinance Declaring Municipal-Owned Real Property Generally Located on Curb Station Road and Known as Sunny Slope Tank Property Held for the Use and Benefit of the Commissioners of Waterworks of the City of Paducah, DBA Paducah Water, as surplus and approving the sale and transfer of same." This ordinance is summarized as follows. This ordinance authorizes the City of Paducah, Kentucky, on behalf of Paducah Water, a quitclaim a certain tract of substandard surplus real property, generally known as the Sunny Slope Tank Property, to the Harringtons.
Second.
Same thing, Jason, correct? Just giving the property back to the original owners.
That's correct. This was a former elevated storage tank site that's been demolished.
Commissioner Galt, please.
I move that the Board of Commissioners introduce an ordinance entitled, "An Ordinance Declaring Municipally Owned Real Property Generally Located on Krebs Station Road and Known as the Krebs Pump Station Property Held for the Use and Benefit of the Commissioners of Waterworks of the City of Paducah, DBA Paducah Water, as surplus and approving the sale and transfer of same." This ordinance is summarized as follows. This ordinance authorizes the City of Paducah, Kentucky, on behalf of Paducah Water, to quitclaim a certain tract of substandard surplus real property, generally known as the Krebs Pump Station Property, to Walls Living Trust.
Second.
Okay. Any questions for Jason? Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Rhodes, please.
Okay, I move that the Board of Commissioners introduce an ordinance entitled, "An Ordinance Accepting the Bid of Linwood Motors for the Sale to the City of one minivan for use by the Paducah Park Service Department, and authorizing the mayor to execute a contract for same." This ordinance is summarized as follows. The City of Paducah accepts the bid of Linwood Motors in the total amount of $22,996 for the purchase of one minivan for use by the Park Services Department, and hereby authorizes the mayor to execute a contract for same.
Second.
Rick?
Mayor Commission, this is just a completion or one of the final completions of the purchases for the fleet in the Parks Department for your previous fiscal year. The next two will also be included in that as well.
Okay. Commissioner Wilson, please.
I move that the Board of Commissioners introduce an ordinance entitled, "An Ordinance Accepting the Bid of Linwood Motors for Sale to the City of one Jeep Patriot for use by the Paducah Park Services Department, and authorizing the mayor to execute a contract for same." This ordinance is summarized as follows. The City of Paducah accepts the bid of Linwood Motors in the total amount of $24,984 for the purchase of one Jeep Patriot for use by the Paducah Park Service Department, and hereby authorizes the mayor to execute a contract for same.
Second.
Okay. Any questions for Rick? Okay, thank you.
Got one more.
Uh,
Got one more.
One more. He can't go yet, huh? Commissioner Abraham, please.
I move that the Board of Commissioners introduce an ordinance entitled, an ordinance accepting the bid for sale to the city one sewer pump truck for use by the Engineering Public Works Department and authorizing the mayor to execute a contract for same. This ordinance is summarized as follows. The City of Paducah accepts the bid of Jack Donnie Companies in an amount not to exceed $365,000 for the purchase of one sewer pump truck for use by the Engineering Public Works Department and hereby authorizes the mayor to execute a contract for same.
Second.
Mayor Commission, this particular vehicle that we're purchasing is to replace an 11-year-old vehicle that it kind of looks like an elephant going down the road. It's a big truck, has a big tank on it, and it also has a snout that goes over the front of the truck that assists us with cleaning storm sewers where those problems may persist.
Pretty timely.
What are the trucks that I see around town now? Is that?
Which ones, Mayor?
They're white, big white trucks that look like they have a tank.
Okay,
and
we have I guess a pump truck, a sewer pump truck for our storm sewers in JSA.
They're out of town.
And JSA also has a pump truck, but then also JSA is having some work, and it's good to have John here tonight because he can explain what some of those, I guess, contracts they have to rehabilitate their sewers.
Okay. So that's the company, one of your companies that's working. Okay. All right. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Rick. Commissioner Galt.
I move that the Board of Commissioners introduce an ordinance entitled, an ordinance authorizing and approving the acquisition of the real property located at 432 Broadway, Paducah, McCracken County, Kentucky, for purposes of public safety. This ordinance is summarized as follows. This ordinance authorizes the City of Paducah, Kentucky to acquire a certain tract of real property, including structures and improvement, generally located at 432 Broadway, Paducah, McCracken County, Kentucky, for purposes of public safety from 432 Broadway, LLC, for the purchase price of $1.
Second.
Good evening. If I can, I'd like to give a little bit of information, but probably tie this agenda item in with the procurement of professional services, which is the next agenda item. The City of Paducah has been working with the property owner since a correction notice was issued in December of 2010. On May 13th, 2015, a meeting was held with Mr. Leary to discuss what his redevelopment intentions were. Mr. O'Leary reiterated that he was not prepared to spend monies on the demolition and or repair of the building and would be willing to transfer the building to the City of Paducah. Following the meeting, the City of Paducah contacted Sullivan Colsart out of Louisville, Kentucky. This firm was contacted because of staff knowledge of extensive rehabilitation work in Louisville. Sullivan Colsart provided the city with both preliminary demolition and rehabilitation estimates. Preliminary demolition estimates provided were $432,000 and not to exceed $657,000 if temporary shoring was required in the adjacent building, which is the Varney building. Preliminary stabilization estimates at that time were estimated between $1.9 and $2 million. It should be noted this number only stabilizes the structure. This number represents Kentucky Building Code Section 1613, which requires the remaining portion of the structure to be brought up to 75% of the seismic code and 100% of the wind load. With the understanding that the building is owned by a limited liability corporation and that the city will ultimately be responsible for the demolition or stabilization of the structure, the city initiated a CDBG grant application process. And this is one of the reasons that we're trying to purchase the property at this time, as the city has to own the property to apply for the Community Development Block Grant. The CDBG may reimburse the city up to $500,000 of demolition cost. The application is scheduled to be submitted in August, and we'll probably find out in March of 2016 of whether or not we're successful. In full compliance with the city's procurement policies, staff solicited sealed bids through an advertisement in the Paducah Sun on June 21st, 2015. Based on the scope of work, staff anticipated the contractor's bids for demolition to total somewhere in the neighborhood of $500,000 to $650,000. Bids were opened at 3 o'clock on Monday, the 6th of July, with the following results, and that's Environmental Abatement Incorporated at $458,000 and Cardinal Industrial Installation at $596,000. We've reviewed the bids, and we've checked some references on the bids, and we've made a recommendation on Environmental Abatement Incorporated for $458,000. And I know there may be some questions. There are other people that are here also that may be able to answer those questions that you have.
Steve, the landowner, so there's absolutely no way that this landowner's gonna do anything to the building. They're just gonna leave it to stand there.
Yes, over the last 12 months, we've had several meetings with Mr. O'Leary. On every occasion that we've had a chance to speak with him and ask him what his intentions were. His intentions were not to rehabilitate the structure and or demolish the structure, and that he's willing to walk away from the structure.
And at this point, we believe it's a serious issue that needs to be taken care of.
That's our understanding.
And in his LLC, there is absolutely nothing in there except the building. There's no,
That's my understanding. Our attorney is here, is of course, that could answer that question better, but that is my understanding. That's correct.
nothing to take, nothing to attach.
And there's no way to force him to do anything.
And that's been our recommendation from our council, that there's no way we can do that at this time.
We could initiate the work ourselves and file a lien against the property, but the same situation comes up with respect to the obligation of the property owner to pay that off, which the protection of an LLC pretty much relieves him of that. So we have a situation that's been looked at by multiple structural engineers that have all drawn the same conclusion. We've gone around the bases several times. Obviously, this is not something we relish, the situation that we find ourselves in. It's something we're not necessarily prepared for, financially or otherwise. But what it reduces itself to is a public threat, and there's only one body in this city that's in a position to move to try to alleviate that, and that's the city. And that's the situation we find ourselves in, and it's a major concern for the concern about could we find ourselves in this situation again going forward. And as we've mentioned before, we've begun discussions with League of Kentucky Municipalities about legislative protection or relief on this kind of a thing, and we certainly are going to go after that vigorously. But the situation is what it is right now, and it's been characterized as not a question of if but when, and given the location of that structure and the amount of pedestrian vehicle traffic that goes by that, the duration of how long this has been going on, this is the situation we find ourselves in.
How long have they owned that building?
Since 2010.
And because of the location, that's helping to drive up the cost of this demolition. Steve, I know I've heard you say it's going to be very detailed, very intricate. You have to protect the building next to it, protect the buildings all around it.
Yeah, this is a little bit of a unique circumstance in that it's in the downtown area. It's joined to the building next to it, and it's going to take a little bit of skill and craft, I guess is the best way to classify it, for that building to be taken down without impacting the other building. Very technical in terms. Lots of engineering has gone into this, and at the end of the day, they still don't know what they're going to run into. So the confined space that it's in, the height of the building, the fact that it's tied to another building that's tied to another building as it goes down the block, are all things that impact the bid that we've had explained to us from the engineers that have looked at it, and that's some of the impact that kind of technical detail is having on the cost.
And I think also it's the temporary shoring that may have to take place within the O'Leary building before it can be demolished, and also temporary shoring with the adjacent Varney building. That's quite possible. A lot of that will come out as the contractor gets on site and goes through what we refer to as discovery, when they really start taking a close look on how they're going to proceed with demolition.
As the commission knows, we are applying for a community development block grant for prospective cost sharing of this. We won't know if the block grant is funded until after a decision is made on moving forward with this contract. This is somewhat new ground for the state to consider an application of that nature. I'm sure it concerns them a bit too as to whether or not others like this may come forward. I think it's a credit to the work that's been done at the staff level and with consultants to prepare this information that can go into that block grant application and make this case to the state of how big of a problem this is and the situation the city finds itself in, and why it's appropriate for state funding to be considered to help out with this, again, because it's not something we're set up for. It's not something we're budgeted for. It's not a slice in our budget pie now. So a grant, obviously, we're very hopeful about that, but again, we don't know for sure if that's going to happen.
I think it's very important that we work through the Kentucky League of Cities for legislation to protect our community from anything like this happening in the future, and other communities as well that could be, because this LLC has no other assets in it. It's just this one building. That's it. There's no way to make any kind of payment.
That's my understanding. That's correct, Commissioner.
Mr. Denton, could you come speak to that, please? I think that's where I'm.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. The question is, this is a single asset, limited liability company. It has nothing else in it in terms of finding something of public record that's where it is. In addition, in our meeting with Mr. O'Leary in January, he told us the same. And so it's a common legal technique to take a piece of property, put it into a single asset, limited liability company. So that's where we are. Did I answer your question?
It does answer my question. It doesn't make me feel any better about it.
It does not make me feel any better.
No, it's that old term we've all heard. It's demolition by neglect, and
it shouldn't make you feel any better. What Chief Kyle was mentioning to me is, candidly, this is a technique that's being done around the state. The one thing that I think that you should give credit to your staff for is this, and that is they're being proactive in regard to this. As you have seen in other communities such as Mayfield and Murray, some of our river counties, they've had buildings fall into the middle of the street. When that happens, you are then in catch-up mode. This particular building, if it makes you feel any better, or perhaps will make you feel worse, has been looked at by 3 different local contractors in terms of shoring, rehabilitation, and/or demolition. None of them wanted to proceed forward with the project. This is a unique situation, as the chief said, unique circumstances, not only legally, but structurally and engineering-wise. And so I really do think this is the most prudent course of action. Not the most pleasant or palatable, but most prudent.
Thank you.
Sure.
Commissioner Rhodes, please.
Okay. I move that the Board of Commissioners introduce an ordinance entitled, an ordinance accepting the bid of Environmental Abatement Incorporated for demolition of a condemned unsafe structure located at 432 Broadway in the City of Paducah, and authorizing the mayor to execute a contract for same. This ordinance is summarized as follows: that the City of Paducah accepts the bid of Environmental Abatement Incorporated in the amount of $458,685 for the demolition of a condemned unsafe structure at 432 Broadway in the City of Paducah, and authorizes the mayor to execute a contract for same.
Second.
Hi, Steve. Any questions for Steve on this? Another new home. That's good.
No, that was the demolition.
Oh, the demolition. Sorry.
Good news is coming.
The good news is coming.
Yeah.
Right. Commissioner Wilson, please.
Here's the good news. I move that the Board of Commissioners introduce an ordinance entitled, an ordinance approving the recommendation of the Urban Renewal and Community Development Agency to accept the bid of Jim Steel Construction for construction of a new home at 1532 Monroe Street, and authorizing the mayor to execute a contract for same. This ordinance is summarized as follows: that the City of Paducah accepts the bid of Jim Steel Construction in the amount of $142,700 for the construction of a new home at 1532 Monroe Street, and also authorizes the mayor to execute a contract for same.
Second.
Well, we're into the 30s now in new construction in Fountain Avenue. If you've driven through Fountain Avenue in the last few weeks, you actually see 3 new houses being built right now. The great thing about those 3 new houses is it's all private reinvestment. The city's really not involved in those. So that's really encouraging that we have people wanting to move to Paducah, into Fountain Avenue, and make that part of their community. This is going to be a brand new home on the corner of 16th and Monroe, and we're excited about getting it started. It'll be the 4th this summer.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Abraham, please.
I move that the Board of Commissioners introduce an ordinance entitled, an ordinance authorizing and directing the mayor to execute a grant agreement and all documents relating thereto with the Kentucky Office of Homeland Security for a Law Enforcement Protection Program grant award. This ordinance is summarized as follows. The mayor is hereby authorized to execute a grant agreement and all documents relating thereto with the Kentucky Office of Homeland Security to obtain a Law Enforcement Protection Program grant award in the amount of $23,940 for assistance with purchasing body armor vests to be used by the Paducah Police Department.
Second.
Mayor Commission, good evening. This is in replacement of an expiring vest that we currently have on the street. This year's grant application was obviously for 36 body armor vests that you were aware of. We were funded for that at roughly a price of $24,000. There is zero match to the city.
Any questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Do you want to talk after Commissioner Galt, please?
I move that the Board of Commissioners introduce an ordinance entitled, an ordinance renaming a portion of South 7th Street to Clarence Gaines Street. The ordinance is summarized as follows, that the name of the portion of South 7th Street located from Broadway to Jones Street be renamed to Clarence Gaines Street.
Second.
Thank you.
The city received a petition some months ago from the NAACP requesting that a portion of 7th Street from Broadway to Jones be renamed to Clarence Gaines Street. That portion of 7th Street from Broadway to Jones affects 8 blocks with 21 adjacent property owners and 41 total parcels. We don't really have a prescribed method for going about review of these in the ordinance. It happens from time to time, but we thought that the important thing to do was to validate the signatures so that city staff was in a position to certify to you what the feelings of the adjacent property owners are. And it took some time to do that, and a little bit of the time was associated even with the change in administration in McCracken County because the courthouse and other county properties are on 7th Street. So it's taken a bit of time to get to this point. As it turns out, we were able to determine that 10 property owners agreed. 3 didn't. There were 8 property owners that we were not able to reach. One property owner, the Urban Renewal Community Development, is a city-owned property. So we have, I guess you'd call it a majority of support for this, but there are some property owners who oppose it. Again, there's not a system that says majority or supermajority or anything like that. If approved, renaming the street obviously would cause an address change for records associated with the 41 parcels that are on it. Records, I think, pretty much common knowledge what they might be, mail, postal delivery things. There'd be some city maps, records associated with emergency response and that sort of thing. But that's what's before you tonight. There are different ways to go about this. You can act on this based on the information before you. I've been in cities before that went beyond the petition to offer a hearing for comments, that sort of thing. So as it stands tonight, what you have before you is a petition with the staff work that was done to verify the counts as best we could about where folks along the street stand on the recommendation.
Any comments?
Just that I think when we do get these, I remember when Oscar Cross was street, the name was changed, and the individuals that worked on that worked extremely hard to do that to secure the signatures. But it's always good to understand that process, that you have individuals, businesses, if there are businesses or other residents that live on the street, going through that process, getting their Some people may not want it, majority may want it, but just understanding how that process works and is important. I remember initially when we wanted to rename Oscar Cross, we were like, okay, let's do it. And then when you got into the process, you realize, okay, folks are like, Mr. Cross was a great guy, but do we really want to change the street or everything goes with that? And ultimately, we got it done. So moving forward with that, that's part of the process. I think Mr. Gaines is well suited to have a street in Paducah named after him. So we'll take that process and go through it and see where it comes out.
Okay, thank you. City Manager's report.
Recognizing that we have a number of folks in attendance tonight that want to address the commission on the rain event and the impacts on their property, I would like to make some comments about that and maybe create a context to have some interchange with folks that have come forward. And first of all, I want to say on behalf of the city and the city staff that we certainly empathize and sympathize with problems that people have been experiencing with their property with the very, very unusually high and intense rainfall that occurred last week. I've had a fair amount of experience with rain events in my career and how it impacts property. And I don't think there are many things that can be bigger problems for folks and evoke stronger emotions than water entering their property. So we understand that and empathize with it. I want to say that the city is cooperating any way we can to assist people that feel they might have a claim against the city to file that with the city's insurance carrier. And we would invite anybody that would like to do so to contact us at the phone number 270-444-8540, 444-8540. And we have a staff person in the risk management office that is dedicated to receiving and helping process those. That gentleman's name is Martin Russell. So again, anybody out there that would like to do that, we are set up to receive those and have I think at least a couple dozen in process as we speak. Before speaking about what I think we might be in a position to consider going forward, and again, we are obviously going to take questions and hear comments from folks, I think it would be important to bring forward a little bit of information about the nature of the rain event that we had, not to suggest that explains it all, therefore we have nothing to talk about, but to establish a little bit of information about the pattern of rainfall events that we've been seeing and how likely something like this is to occur, because at some point in time when we talk about efforts to strengthen our stormwater management system going forward, we have to deal in some practical terms in terms of what it makes sense or what the art of the possibility is with respect to the amount of dollars that makes sense to be invested for what the return is that we would expect. So I'd like to take just a couple minutes with the Commission's indulgence to share a little bit of information. I think we have a PowerPoint that gives us a little backdrop on what we've been experiencing here. Okay, we're chronicling several events going back here to 1985, and I think people are generally familiar with the time period associated with rain events when we talk about 100-year, 5-year, 10-year, or what have you. For example, a 100-year event is something that has a 1 in 100 chance of occurring in any given year. It doesn't mean it's going to happen every 100 years necessarily. It could be more often, it could be less. Again, these are acts of God and somewhat to chance, so we cannot absolutely predict them. Going back to 1985, we experienced an event that exceeded the 100-year event. We did that again in 89 and 97. And if you look at the rainfall amounts in the period of time, isn't that curious how similar they are? Each of those was a rainfall that exceeded a 100-year event, which, just for informational purposes, is beyond the typical capacity that municipal stormwater systems are sized to deal with. So if we want to take a look at all of these events with respect to, are these beyond the size and capacity of a typical municipal stormwater system, the answer to that would be yes. Of course, there are also rain events that happen more frequently that we know causes problems that probably are more representative of the type of situations that we would want to focus in on for determination of what measures might be out there to take to deal with them. We've, of course, heard a lot of comment about, well, it wasn't just the event last week, but there was one a couple of years ago, too. And there was, and it was a doozy as well. In 2013, we had an event that produced almost 7 inches of rain in 24 hours. And that exceeded a 100-year event as well, too, and caused a lot of problems for a lot of people. That was a much larger event than the 4 that preceded that. So I'm kind of talking about bad luck here now in terms of a lot of this in recent history here. We've had 2 events in the last 2 years that were far greater in extreme than those that preceded them over the prior 20 years or so. But take a look at the one that happened most recently, 5.4 inches in 3 hours, and how much more intensity that was than the one that preceded it. It was like 1.5 times that in intensity, and it is an event that not only exceeded a 100-year event, but exceeded a 500-year event, approaching something probably double that. So it was a very, very unusual occurrence, and I think it's just important that we note that as sort of a backdrop for the discussions about what we do going forward. The second thing I wanted to do, if you would move to the next slide, Pam, we have heard a lot of wonderment about how the city's flood wall system functioned during this event, and this is really a fascinating system, and it's, you know, somewhat unique to Paducah. I don't have a lot of experience with this. I'm still learning about it, but it's amazing how much of the community this system actually is intended to drain. So I think the one thing that I would like to really bring forward factually tonight is the functioning of that system during this most recent rain event. So I'm asking Rick Murphy to briefly speak about that and in terms of how it functioned and what the I guess the upper limit of its functionality was during this event, given the situation that we had.
Mayor, Commission, the graphic that you're looking at right now is it ties pump stations to river events. The flood wall itself is dictated, or its operation is dictated solely by the elevation of the river. We have this map available in our office, but the varying colors with those big numbers on top of them show, I want to talk about, I guess, and if I can get a cursor here working, this is 27.5. That 27.5 is associated with our pump station number 2. So if you live in this shaded area, I guess bounded by this, I guess, I don't know what color you'd call that, but if you live in that shaded area, that pump station goes into effect when the river elevation reaches 27.5. Now, in the evenings during the weather forecast, WPSD, they'll give you the river stages, and they give it every evening during their reports. And then as the river climbs in elevation, then other stations go into effect. Our next station is pump station number 11. Now, that's on the south side of town. That serves a large portion of the county. So when the river reaches 33 feet, we'll activate that station. And again, as the river rises, we activate more stations. But for example, today, the river elevation is just in excess of 36 feet. So there's physically, like these stations over here, they're at 47 feet, 42 and a half feet, 38 feet. These stations are not active because they're physically not in contact with the river. The river's not backed up into them where we have to shut the river off from it. So physically, those areas of town, for example, like this area of town, is gravity flow open to the river because we've not closed the gates that allow the river to flow back in on us. So this is an important graphic because we have 12 pump stations, and they're dictated by the river's elevation, and as it climbs, we engage more. As it falls, we disengage them because gravity flow is much more efficient than mechanical flow.
Okay, I mean, Rick, as far as functionality of this system during this event, everything was functioning?
Everything we have that should be functioning is functioning.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, those pump stations are manned as we speak, 24/7. They were put in May 21st, too, by the way.
Again, I know a lot of folks want to speak and share with you information about how their property was affected, their lives affected. That's good information for the city to have as we move forward in what I think needs to be a new process of developing and updating our master plan. We had, of course, a lot of city staff out and about during the event and in the aftermath of the event. I know, for example, the electrical department, when they became aware of flooding in homes or water in homes, went out and took a look at the electrical connections to make sure that everything was okay and safe and that sort of thing. So that's some information that we have. But if we are to go into a planning mode, we would obviously, the more information that we have about how individual properties fare during various water events, the more knowledgeable we can be planning. The city's comprehensive stormwater drainage study was last conducted in 1989. I think it's timely that we look at a new process of assessing the system and developing a plan for going forward. 1989 was a while ago, and it was a pretty ambitious plan at the time. There were a lot of recommendations for projects. Total suggested cost of those projects was in the tens of millions of dollars. There were some things done, others not. So there is arguably still a list of potential projects that could be looked at. Additionally, in the passage of that amount of time, some things have changed. There's obviously been more build out around the community. More water displacement has occurred. Our flood wall management system has gotten older, and our efforts to plan for the replacement upgrade of that have stepped up, and we're to the point of hopefully we're going to start to see some of that occur. Importantly, right now, our partner, the Joint Sewer Agency, is in the process of a sewer separation project, a multi-year project, a large project that's going to have some impact on our stormwater system as well, that I think impacts or provides us information for what we might do or need to do going forward. So I would like to recommend to the Commission tonight that in addition to whatever it is that we might be able to do in the short term, if anything, that we commit to a new process of assessing our system and developing a plan that includes some strategies for upgrading our system going forward. Again, I would like to point out that a stormwater management system, like other city operations, is one that requires some kind of a balance between what it is that the public can afford or was willing to pay for and what it is that we want in terms of capability and outcomes. And I really think a new assessment process and a planning process is going to help sort that out again, so that good decisions can be made going forward about where and how much upgrades to the system that we might want to make. I might mention as well that I think that also part of that would need to be some kind of a determination of what the means might be for embarking on a series of system improvements. A number of cities around the state have committed very strongly to this in recent years and have taken advantage of a mechanism that the state allows for funding of these kinds of projects. So I think that's something that we would want to take a look at. So I would envision creating an advisory committee to coordinate that assessment and planning process, and at the very least vet, if not actually make recommendations to the City Commission about essentially adopting a plan with some measures in it that could be taken going forward to increase the system capability.
And along with doing an upgrade on the stormwater management plan is coming up with a plan, and we would work with our emergency management system and do a total coordination of what's available to the public, educating the public, working with different groups and churches, volunteers that would help, giving everyone a plan when we have an emergency like this. You know, where are the resources? Where do you find these resources? Who's there to help you? And I talked with Jerome Mansfield this afternoon and Chief Kyle. So I want us to start working on that as well, to have in place along with the upgrade on the storm management system. So,
I know the city and the county did apply for
okay, we applied for, Jerome, do you want to speak on that a little bit? The application? We didn't qualify. There weren't enough properties impacted, but there's been some news that might help us.
Yes, Mayor and Commissioners, Mr. City Manager. We did, the Mayor and Judge Executive.
This is Jerome Mansfield.
Yes.
Our EMS.
Mayor and Judge Executive declared an emergency immediately after the flood occurred, and we submitted that to the Kentucky Emergency Management Division. They determined there was not enough damage as far as number of homes and businesses affected to ask for a FEMA declaration, which would require asking the president to declare a disaster. They did determine that if emergency management opted to, we could ask the U.S. Small Business Administration to come in and assess damage and possibly have a chance at getting declared by the U.S. SBA administrator in Washington as a disaster area for their agency. Then that would give an opportunity to offer loans at low interest to businesses and homeowners and people who rent apartments for acquiring some funds through the government through a loan situation. So today SBA sent an assessor and verifier into the community, and he was taken around by city officials to all the communities and businesses that we knew of that were affected, and he's writing his report this week. I'm going to meet with him tomorrow, and he said he needed a minimum of 25 homes or businesses that had at least 40% non-insured losses, and he felt good that that number had been achieved. And then he'll make his recommendation to the Atlanta SBA region later this week. Then he'll go to Washington early next week for the SBA administrator to consider a declaration.
So if people are interested in that, who would they contact?
Okay, when it's announced,
Okay.
they can go to the SBA website online, or they can contact my office emergency management, at 3700 Coleman Road.
And that will be announced through the news media?
Yes,
Or how will
ma'am.
that?
Yes, it'll be announced.
Now, you also talked about all the terrific rains that they've been having in central Kentucky.
Yes.
And how that might impact the whole state of Kentucky.
Yes, I'm going to meet with emergency management officials with the state in the morning. This afternoon, the governor declared a statewide emergency because in addition to McCracken, many other counties were added in central Kentucky, and eastern Kentucky to the list of people who had flash flooding, severe thunderstorms that drove people from their homes and had similar situations as here. So it could be possible with the aggregate amount of counties and cities in this declaration, we could be added on. But we'll have to discuss that with emergency management officials further.
And so if we were declared, how would that help us here in McCracken County?
If we were declared by the president to qualify under FEMA, then there could be individual assistance made available through FEMA, which is essentially a grant program to help people get back into their houses and maybe replace a vehicle that was flooded or help with cleaning supplies and basic needs.
I know there was extensive flooding in Louisville over the
Yes.
weekend, so that accounts in with it as well,
Yes.
the whole state.
And the weather services, what they're categorizing as round 3 in Louisville, Lexington, East Kentucky area is going to occur tonight, they feel. More torrential rain and possible flash flooding. Currently in Eastern Kentucky, Johnson County was hit hardest. They have 11 people unaccounted for since yesterday from a flash flood, which worsens the situation.
Any questions for Jerome? Thank you.
Thank you.
So we have 20 people here tonight that have signed up for public comments. And normally we allow 5 minutes per person, which would be an hour and a half. So to expedite this, and I want to be fair to everyone in the audience, I went through and I selected every 5th person out of the stack to come up and address the commission. And then we'll see how long that takes and if we have some additional time, or if you have something particular to your property that hasn't been stated by these folks that come up, then we will certainly listen to that as well. So I just randomly went through and picked every 5th person, and I think it's a pretty good indicator of the city. One is on Kennedy Road, one on Harrison, one on Broadway, another one on Madison, and one on Deerlick Place. And yeah, that one's on Broadway. So that gives us a pretty good coverage of the city. So the first one is Bart Travis. And he's at 2127 Madison Street.
Evening,
Hi,
Mayor
Bart.
and Commissioners, thank you for allowing us to speak this evening. I would like to start coming out. I think that,
And we do
that
have
more than 20% of these people deserve to speak, and I don't think that you should shut us down because of time. The city manager didn't have time speaking for 10 or 15 minutes. I think every one of these people should have the
You're
opportunity to
wasting
speak
your
as
time,
well.
Bart. You need to talk to us about your, sorry.
I'm sorry?
I said you need to talk to us about your particular situation.
Well, there was 11 inches of water in our house there. In 2012, which wasn't on your graphics there, Mr. City Manager, I went to, it happened the first time. It got up under the houses right there at 2127 in that entire block. It wasn't addressed then. My mother addressed the mayor's office and nothing was done. The next year, I went and spoke on 2013. We spoke to the city again and went to the people who are in charge of the drain systems and the ditch systems. And they said, well, the system is not designed to be able to handle this type of volume. Fair enough. It's an old system. So I asked what has been done to upgrade it. Or maybe you made it a floodplain. They said, no, it's not a floodplain. It hasn't happened enough. But as you said there, it's happened 6 times in so many years. I don't understand why it hasn't been addressed until now. Obviously, the pump system that wasn't on when the rain was falling, there might have been people there, as the gentleman claimed. It wasn't on because when someone did call, they did turn them on. And then at that point, it started draining. It drained out of my mother's house out of our house, excuse me. My mother lives there. I own the property. After the pumps went on, they went down in less than 30 minutes. So if the pumps would have been on, we wouldn't be having this meeting like this evening. So people may be there, but if it's not if it's a manual system, then they didn't turn it on manually. If it's an automated system, then it obviously needs some work. Other than that, I don't know what to say. If it costs tens of millions of dollars to correct this system, although you've known about it for how many years now, over 20 years, 30 years now, you've known about this problem, tens of millions of dollars. And I feel bad that they have to drive a 11-year-old vehicle down the road to pump the sewers out. Looks like an elephant. My heart goes out. I think the rest of us here that have actually lost physical things, our entire house is destroyed. The water level in a house, once it's there, once they turned the pumps on, went away, but it's there. Now the floors are ruined. There's black mold growing everywhere. My mother cannot live in that house again. My neighbor cannot live in their houses again. They've been up and moved out. These are not young people. I happen to be in town. I work out of town a lot. These are older people. I know that I talked to Mr. Mansfield when I called the state, when I called your office, Madam Mayor, that they said it has been turned over to the state, so I followed up to the state. Well, the state hadn't heard of it at that point. I don't know what was done there. It maybe just lost in the shuffle of it all. But Mr. Mansfield graciously told me he would meet me out on Madison Road today, and we'd have the state man there with him, which I don't believe we saw each other today, did we, Mr. Mansfield? No, I didn't think so. So in our neighborhood, we have very, very little confidence in you. We don't feel like you've served the city well. You talk about how well your staff does, and they reach out to the businesses that are coming to town. We're not a $4 billion company, and we not have all of these properties or anything. We're small people with small problems. However, when our whole world is destroyed, it becomes a very large problem. Now, all of you here know good and well that this could have been avoided because it's been brought up to your attention in the past. It's not something new. So, once again, you haven't done what you have told us in the past that you would do, not just once and not just twice, and not just you, but also throughout the state. So we feel like we're left here. I had to carry my mother out of that house. It was over my waist, in the middle of the street. Richard Abraham was standing right there. He saw me. I was in the red Suburban. So I would ask that all of you truly consider this. And I don't know who we have to contact about. You said it's Mark Russell is our point of contact at the office there?
Martin Russell.
Martin Russell. Thank you. And besides that, are you going to change it and make it any kind of flood zone there? Or is there any plans to do anything different than what's been done now? I know the day after you had trucks out cleaning the gutters, the sewers, and then yesterday I saw an independent contractor cleaning the sewers. So I know that we're on a shared system there as well. So the drain system from the water and the drain system from our sewers is all going into the same system. And we pay extra for that not to work for us. Thank you.
Thank you. And I just want you to know that I certainly understand your frustration and I understand your anger.
Our frustration is that we've come to you twice in the last 3 years and you haven't done nothing.
Okay.
You've done absolutely nothing.
We have Mr. Havel on Deer Lick Place.
I've probably got more experience than anybody else. My home, I've been living in that house for 21 years. My property has been underwater 34 times. There's a creek at the end of the street that does not have the capacity to, well, it did not have the capacity for 21 years ago. And they keep building more and more stuff upstream on Blandville Road, the Murray State thing, all of that, Heartland Church, all of it. And it all comes into my living room. Before me, I inherited the property from my parents. They were there for 12 years. So I've got 33 years of experience with this. And they came to these meetings and nothing was done. I've called Mr. Murphy numerous times and been dismissed by it, saying, well, you live next to a creek, big deal. It's not, right now, we're living in a hotel. We have, my roommate has an office in the garage, which has been destroyed for the third time. The graph that you showed was, it didn't list this year's July 1st. There was 2 inches of water around my house. I figured this up that 21 years and 34 floods makes it an average of 1.62 times my neighborhood will flood per year. And that's not acceptable. It's just not. Since Mr. Murphy has dismissed me all these years, this March I went over the city's head, and I have contacted directly the Army Corps of Engineers, 5 different offices. I contacted the governor's office and the representative's office. I had a girl from Rand Paul's office, spent 45 minutes at my house. We walked around the grounds, walked up and down the street. I told them all about it. The governor's office, I spoke to someone there, and they have forwarded my information to Department of Waterways, and because it comes off of Blandville Road, which is a highway, they sent it to the Department of Transportation as well. I spoke to the Army Corps of Engineers last Tuesday morning, July 7th. I called, I got one of the same people I've talked to. I've talked to 3 different people there, and they have moved me up on their list because it's happened yet again. And I don't know. I'm not sure what else to say. All the talk about the flood wall and the river, well, that has nothing to do with flash flooding, at least not in my neighborhood. We had, let's see, in 2013, you mentioned June 1st, but we were also flooded on the 18th and on October 4th. That's 3 in 1 year that it got in my house. Of course, by the time it happened on October 4th, I had no carpet and no walls, so all I did was just turn on the shop vac and suck all the water out. It's all the construction upstream. They're not allowing for the water dispensation, and the gal from Rand Paul's office had researched this before she came down, and she said that it was all according to code. And I said, when was the code made? In the 30s or the 40s or when? Because it's not valid now. It's not valid because there's so many things built there. PCC keeps expanding. Murray has come over here. That church gets bigger and bigger all the time. I mean, there's no place for the water to go except my living room. I don't know what to do. I don't know where to go. I can't sell my house. I can't abandon my house because then I can't ever buy another house. I'm stuck there with nowhere to go, no way to get rid of it. The city won't help me. That's why I went to the governor and the representatives and everyone else. Since you did not call his name, Tony Kraus there, or Kraus, I forgot which, he is the manager of the apartments across Crooked Creek. Every unit on the bottom has been flooded there. And the people are moving out and they're not coming back. Just thought I should add that since you didn't call him. Our neighborhood is just a disaster area all by itself and continues to be that way. 34 times? 34, just since I've lived there. My parents had water in the house twice. and I don't know how many times it came up because they didn't count. I know that my stepmother, after my dad passed away, sandbagged the garage and left it that way. And she would just, they had built a floodgate in the front to keep the water out. So she would snap the floodgate shut and it would just go around the house. But now it's coming up through the concrete floor. It's eaten away the yard so much that I can't keep it out of the house anymore. I used to be able to mow my lawn in the back without bumping up and down over roots. I've lost probably 4 or 5 inches of topsoil. It's just eating my yard away, eating my house away. At this time, I was in the kitchen, and we had just started reseeding outside, so we opened the back door to let the water out, which is a frightening thing to say. And I heard this thumping, and I said, Kevin, I think there's something floating in the garage. And about that time, the garage door, or the door between the garage and the house, snapped open like a doggy door, and water just rushed in the house. The water pressure was so strong, it knocked my door open. And it had raised the garage door, which is why it was so high out there. So, perfect timing.
Thank you. Nicholas Holland, 300 Broadway.
I think he was here on another matter.
Are you here on another matter, Nicholas?
I don't think he's here anymore.
Okay. LaVon Watson. 611 Broadway.
Right, I own the building downtown on Broadway, and I feel for these people, and I feel like I shouldn't be here after hearing what they're saying. My store has flooded 11,000 square feet the other day, and again, it flooded in 2014. At that time, we looked at what could possibly be causing the water, because my store is the only one that floods. In the back of the store, in the alley, there is a very small grate. And I talked to the engineering department and said, and they looked, and they came call me back and said, this is too small. It will not drain this alley. However, if we put a larger grate in, it's still not going to drain it because the pipe is too small. It goes down, makes a 90-degree turn onto Jefferson, so on and so forth. That's why the water's backing up, coming into the back of the store and flooding. If you're going to do a new plan, I'm asking you to look at the alley behind my store, look at the drainage, look at the front of the store where the drainage comes, the rainwater goes under the sidewalk out into a larger drain for the city. I think that's inadequate. I've asked, the brick sidewalk out there has caved in and had to be replaced, and now the bricks are caving again. So I have to question if that drain going under that sidewalk is inadequate. And all I can get is that's your responsibility. You know, we didn't put those bricks in there. Maybe it is my responsibility, but I just need some answers. What do I need to do? I've got 2 tenants renting businesses down there. One moved out today. I wouldn't be surprised if the other one does. I can't keep replacing carpet and spending $10,000 to get the water extracted. And what's going to happen, you're going to have another empty building sitting on Broadway. So I'm just asking somebody to do something to help me. I have spent $20,000 over this flood last year and this flood, and if it comes another rain, it's going to flood again. And I can't keep doing that. And I don't blame the people, for moving. They can't run their businesses when the carpet's soaking wet.
Which building is that?
611. It was Wright Businesses. I inherited it from my dad, Arthur Wright, and Turner Communication. Insight is in there now. Crossroads used to be in there. It's very difficult to rent buildings on Broadway. And when you get a renter, I go out of my way to keep the maintenance on the building, to keep everything the way it needs to be. But when they call me at 4:30 in the morning and say the water's running out the back door again, they're going to move, and I don't blame them. And I don't know what to do to stop it.
Thank you. Is it Mount on Kennedy Road?
Good morning, ma'am. Good afternoon, ma'am. Commissioners, kind of nervous. I live on 163 Kennedy Road, and Perkins Creek or Crooked Creek, it's just dependent on which one you want to call it. I've lived there for 4 years, and I've lost 4 feet of my land. I've got pictures showing 6 of my fence posts laid out with the concrete faced out. Being down at the corner of Miller, I live on the corner of Miller and Kennedy, which is a dead end, which you guys forget to plow and anything else during the snows and stuff like that, because I guess you think it's just but it is a road. There needs to be some drainage done through there, because down those hills, a lot of water runs, and it hits and it's taking away my property and my rock and what I've built there. Our other concern is that I'm also speaking on behalf of Paducah Lodge number 127, which is on the corner of 30 by PCC. I think it's 2800 block, 2500 block of Jefferson. We can have 2 inches of rain, and we get 2 feet of water inside there. That's because the city's telling us the sewer system cannot sustain the water that is being pushed, so it's pushing it back through our draining system, and now we have sewage in our lodge, which we're just discussing now if we're going to just abandon the lodge, which the Paducah 127 is the 3rd oldest organization in the city of Paducah. So we don't know. We have a nice area, but there's something about that area over there that no matter what, it just always floods, and the city keeps telling us it's their problem because they cannot handle it. But we have a building that we can't maintain because it keeps flooding, and we do get 2 to 3 feet of water in that area.
So it backs up through your sewer?
No, it backs up through the system, which is pushing it through the pushing it back through the drain that we have that goes out to the sewer. It's pushing it all back into the building.
I know that there are some things that you can do for that situation that can be installed that will block it from coming back into your building. Have you all looked at
Yeah, we've looked at all of that, and being that the building was built in the 50s, there's not a lot we can do structurally because of the way the building is built, of what the material it's built out of. But like I say, we've tried everything we can. But like I said, we don't want to abandon that building, but we can't have meetings there, and that building is his historical building. If you look at all the buildings in Paducah, it is quite a building to look at. But again, back to the Kennedy situation also, like I say, my neighbor, if you come back there, she has on her, for her barn, her little storage building, she has 20 blocks high to keep her building from falling into the creek. So, but they're right about when Murray State came in and all that, they didn't think what they were doing because, Audubon, all that, we're getting all that water on that side of the road. I-24, when they built that, they didn't consider that. All that water is washing down into the creek, and it's not washing into the state's property because the state made it so it would come into my property is when they did that. But again, my home has not been destroyed, but I have water. My house was built 3 feet higher than the flood zone over there, and I had water 2 inches up to my back deck. I've had my side fences all pushed off, and again, the back fence, all of it is flipped over because it's catching the debris of the creek. Thank you.
Thank you. Margaret Shelton. And Margaret lives at 2532 Harrison.
Mayor and Commissioners, I'm actually speaking on behalf of my daughter that lives at 2532 Harrison Street. Belva lived in Livingston County. Her home was destroyed in the tornado in 2013. She has 4 children, so we found her a home in Paducah, good school district and all, and we moved her in there. And so she wakes up at 4 o'clock in the morning, and she hears water rushing. When she gets out of her bed, it's 16 to 18 inches deep. Her son, who's autistic, is also asleep in that room. Her children are very easily frightened now because of the tornado. So she rushes to try to get all of her kids in a safe place. She can't open doors because the water is so deep. No one ever came to her home to see if she was safe, no electrical company or anything. She did see a boat going down Harrison Street, but nobody came to check on her. Her car was picked up later that day. She does not have flood insurance. She did not realize she was in a flood zone. But she was not able to get flood insurance at the time she bought the home. And so, of course, her car is $500 deductible. It's a 2012 Dodge Chrysler minivan. And so they're not even sure that the insurance is going to pay to clean it out. They said that everything's going to have to be taken out of it because they said that was actually sewage water that was her car was filled with, and all the compartments are totally full. So it's still sitting at the Dodge dealership. We are fortunate enough that Relevant Church has, with Love Paducah, is going to try to help us out. We had put new carpeting and, new padding and all that. We had to tear all of that out ourselves because she doesn't have any place else to go. And so we've torn out everything we could, moved out her and her son's beds. I called everybody I could think of. Everybody in Paducah that I talked to told me it's just an act of God. This has not been declared an emergency. None of those people got up to 16 inches of water up on their bed, almost reaching her autistic son. So we had to throw all this stuff away that we had just replaced after a tornado. And it's been very difficult. Her children are very frightened. She's very frightened. And, she's afraid of losing her home. We had a hard time getting her the home because she had just divorced. This was her first home. And so we were very optimistic, about the area and everything. So we're really concerned now because, all the walls, even though when we even called to see if we could get help just getting the trash picked up that we tore out, we were told that the City of Paducah would pick it up for a charge depending on the weight. The stuff was all saturated with water, plus it came another monsoon that night. We had to load it in our truck, take it to the dump, and pay. We didn't find any compassion anywhere except church. And nobody has ever came to see about her electrical. We told her, she had to wade through the water, go to a fuse box, and flip the breaker switch. But she had 4 children there that were scared. And so I just want to know, you can make a good sounding speech, but you're not in that. You didn't get out of your bed to 16 inches of water coming up to the top of your bed. She wasn't told that when she bought this house. And so we're just really, really concerned what's going to happen. She can't afford another house. She still owes on this house. She's making payments every month. We don't want mold and mildew, so everything's got to be torn out and replaced. She doesn't have flood insurance. So, we felt like we needed to come tonight. And she also realized that when they did turn on that system, let the water out, the water went out instantly. But it was up past her knees until that happened. When that happened, the water drained instantly. So, there's something that has to be done that the water doesn't come up inside their homes and inside their vehicles every time there's a rain, unless that area is declared non-livable or something. So we appreciate anything you can do, and we're willing to join any kind of group or whatever we need to join because this is her livelihood. I mean, she's got to live there, and she has 4 children that have to live there. And we don't want their health affected by mold and mildew. And so, I don't know what to ask, except, I was really surprised that the electric company didn't come. I was surprised that everybody I called seemed unconcerned. So I was just really surprised at that.
Rick, now that's two people we've had talk about when the pumps were turned on. What is that? What pumps were turned on?
Could somebody give me their address, please? I mean,
2300 Clay Street, since Clay Street has not been mentioned, and neither has Monroe, 2133 Monroe, 2300 Clay.
okay, I'm going to try to put the cursor in that area and trace that back to some things. We all recognize this as, I guess, Fountain Avenue, okay, which is Madison, 17th and Madison, and you're talking about in this area right in here, okay, 2300. No, let me get 28th Street on here, just forgive me, okay? All right, here's 28th Street, this blue line here, Joe Clifton Drive, Graphic account 27th, 26th, so we're right here, correct? Do we agree with that? I mean,
Between 21st and 28th.
okay, well, I'm getting 23 and 24 and 23 and 28th, okay, so bear with me here. All right, come back here, cursor. Okay, we're in this area right here. Now that ties to our pump station number 2, which is right here. That's our largest pump station in the city of Paducah. Its pumping capacity is 313,000 gallons a minute. Okay, I actually have my flood wall superintendent here with me, who was up all night during that event. And that pump station was actually almost flooding within itself from the event. That pump station is about 22 feet deep, and the water was within 2 feet of the floor. For example, if they were to remove the grates, they'd be looking at the water where they should not be. So when you project that elevation, that's synonymous with everything you're saying. But with 313,000 gallons per minute pumping, it was still insufficient to keep up with the rainfall event, has been demonstrated here. Our pumping capacity of these pump stations is not to pump 100-year or in excess of 100-year flood. Now, yes, ma'am. Oh, I'm
My problem is, sir, we stood right there, we could not get outside. The guys in the little yellow pants came out in the middle of the street and tried to get their attention, they wouldn't pay any attention. They did open the manhole cover, there's a sewer in front of my house, sewer drain, one right over here, one over here, we're on Madison, okay? We called in and said, would you do something about the leak pump? Finally, we got through to somebody, I can't remember who it was, and when they did that, that water started receding, it had already way stopped raining.
Ma'am, I don't know how to address this audience without stating that I know in my 20 years of being here, Brandon's 10 years of being here, on our watch, those pumps have always been operated, and there's been accusations this evening that are totally false. But I have the data to prove it. And the one thing about it, though, is that we hear information, and the information we hear is that when we see the water swirling, we've received this from the community, when we see the water swirling out there on the street, that has nothing to do with the pump itself. It has everything to do with the physics of the water. It's called a Coriolis effect. And when the water starts draining out, that does that, but that has nothing to do with the pump. I could demonstrate that in here, just with a bucket, but I won't do that. I'm just saying that those pumps at this location. Excuse me.
I mean, I think we've talked that the pumps were operating at maximum efficiency.
Well, they're at maximum capacity and beyond.
Right. throughout that event.
Yes,
So,
They were on.
absolutely, absolutely.
Excuse me, I live at 2133 Monroe.
Mm-hmm.
This has not been the first time. This happens all the time. I get sewer water in my home.
Thank you.
I have suck pumps in my house that work. I have sewer water coming through the basement, in my basement, from my bathtub, my commode, my sink. In fact, this time it broke my sink that the water was coming through. So there's leaves, sticks, all of this in my house. I have feces all over my house. Okay? It's like this. When it happened once before, I called downtown here to the city. They tell me, call JSA. I call JSA. JSA say, it's not our fault. Call back to the city. Then I find out, well, the pipes in your neighborhood was put in 20 years ago. You got all of these other businesses and more people moving every day into Paducah. We can't handle it. Where you spend a lot of money trying to build a boat ramp, why don't you try to put in better pipe systems for the people in the community? I would like you to lose the people in the community because they're going to get tired of losing everything that they work hard for to have to move out. I'm in a home right now that I have to move out of because I have COPD. I have mold in my house. I have a son that is allergic to mold and has epilepsy and is scheduled to have surgery soon. We don't have a place to live.
Ma'am,
I've lost everything that I've worked hard for.
ma'am, the only thing I can offer for you, and I feel your anger, I feel your frustration, but I am an instrument of this board. I'm only authorized to do what they authorized me to do. I apologize for all of us, but me personally, as far as an individual or this organization, I can only exercise what I'm given the resources to do with.
so, we have this brought to our attention. I have talked with the city manager about a stormwater management update. We are going to work on that. We're going to get one in place. We will find a way to pay for it because it's something that we need to do as a city. John Hodges with JSA is doing a great job right now separating combined sewers. Because we have those combined sewers, you have the stormwater and the sanitary going through the same system. So that's going to be a long process to do that. But we still need larger pipes. We need to do an update on this plan. We do have some things in place that can help people that have been flooded and have the damage. And we've given those to you tonight. As far as what else we can do to help, if you would give us things that we could do as a city or as a community to be out there to help you. If you need help with moving out, if you need things that you've totally lost, we can find you some assistance. Yes, ma'am. Yes.
I live at 2300 Clay Street. I've been there for about 2.5 years.
Pass that down.
In 2013, I had my first flooding down. And I'm right on the corner coming from, if you're going back toward Noble Park, on that 20th place. When I woke up, my house looked like someone that took it and set it in a river. My patio was destroyed. 2 cars were destroyed. My garage was destroyed. My granddaughter called for help, and we were told, it's so bad we can't even get to you. The people across the street, their houses were up just a little higher, so they were standing there saying, we're trying to get to you, we're trying to help you, don't open your door. The next thing I knew, I had water coming down my hallway. My bedrooms were flooded, so I had to do the only thing I could is try to fight, put down towels, rugs, whatever, to try to keep that water from going into my den, into my kitchen, into my living room. The thing is this, I know for sure that when the pumps came on, the water just, I sat in my living room and I watched the water go from where it was coming from, and it just came across. I have these bushes going down my walkway. You couldn't even see them. And I watched the water just go on over because the pumps came on. The guy next door to me told me, I saw them cutting, they were doing the pumps about 7 o'clock. Well, you know what? That's what time I was putting the rugs and stuff down. So the water was feeding. This is my thing. I hope you all help us. I really do. But right here, already, I have bills. You know, I was charged almost $3,000 just to clean out the 2 bedrooms that were flooded. I was told my whole house has to be, I have hardwood floors, all of that's got to come up. I lost everything in my garage. Now that got me. My cars were outside, so I lost them. A Chevrolet Malibu and a Nissan Rogue. I lost my cars. What I'm saying is, we need help. We need help now because people are having to pay Serpro. Before they would touch a rug in my bedroom, you know they charged me almost $3,000 and told me that my house, to have it repaired, would be from $10,000 to $15,000. I just purchased that house. I am a widow, just buried my daughter the day before and had to wake up to that. I have a 10-year-old son of hers that I have to raise. I am 65 years old. I don't have the funds. I really don't. I don't have the money. And so I think what everybody's here for is just saying, help, help, we live here.
We understand that. I want you to, I really do want you to know that. And we're not going to just sit back and do nothing. I'm telling you that right now. I will not let that happen. Okay? Tony, I think he's here, and we called a name earlier, Nicholas. Now, who is it that we called that wasn't here, Carol?
Nicholas Holland.
So, Tony, are you? Yeah.
Mayor and Commission, my name is Tony Crouch. I am the manager of the apartments at the corner of Oakcrest, owner of NHD Properties. We've owned the apartments for 8 years. 2013, we experienced a flood that everybody else did. We had 8 families displaced. We had a repair cost of approximately $170,000. 2 years later, last week, we experienced a flood that affected 3 of our buildings, displaced 18 families, and we're looking at estimated repair cost of approximately $300,000. Now, unlike some of these people, we have flood insurance, and I'm not here tonight looking for financial assistance, although I do think it's highly needed. But while I'm here tonight is, as I stood there Tuesday morning watching these families my tenants carry their few belongings, one of which is here tonight, out, and we had a lady kayaked out of one of our apartments. I wondered, why is it happening? It seemed to be happening more often and worse, and what can be done about it? Imagine my dismay when at noon on the news I saw a city employee tell us that we live next to a creek and it floods and there's just nothing that can be done. Instrument or not, that's not what we want to hear as taxpayers, as citizens, as business owners, as business licensees. I reached out to a good friend of mine that happens to be sitting on this commission and got what I was looking for, some care, some concern, and some true interest in what's going on in our situation. And Mr. Manager, you spoke earlier, you made the statement that we're considering an advisory committee. I ask you tonight, as a business owner and as a citizen of this town, do not consider anything. Put forth into action efficiently, quickly, timely, this committee. Let's get this situation addressed. Not just our storm drains, but our creeks are not sufficient to handle this water. And I'm not an engineer, but I can tell you when you pave over the top of a hill, that water is going to be dispersed at a much higher and much more destructive rate when the storm drains and the storm systems are not being developed to handle it. I sit there and watch the water basically whitewater across Buckner Lane.
I saw that.
It's clear. On the north side of Pecan Drive, it was dry. The deer were standing there. The south side, it was dammed up to the road. It's clear this problem is environmental. Yes, it may be an act of God or an act of nature, but as we're developing, as we're increasing the families that are coming in, the businesses that are coming in, it's long past overdue to also take into effect the storm systems and the creek systems that handle this water. A month ago, we called out the city crew to take care of a tree that fell on the city side of our property on Buckner Lane. They cut the tree up and they threw it in the creek. What do you think is going to happen to those little storm drainage ditches when all that water gets shoved into that, and those trees, I physically saw it. Those trees blocked those drainage ditches so much that the bridge buckled and buckled the pavement. I know that it's overdue, and I'm not here berating anybody tonight. I'm here imploring, like these families, we've got insurance, we're covered. Not that we definitely could use some help as well. There's a lot that comes out of our pocket. I'm here imploring the commission not to address this as something we need to do. I'm here to implore that you immediately take action on this, that you get this situation looked at and addressed, and create this committee and work to resolve this problem quickly. I know that these things are not resolved overnight, but when businesses come in and taxpayers come in and citizens come in and they invest their very hard-earned money into this city, they do not want to be told we can't do anything. They want to be told what I was told after that: hey, we're here to listen, we're here to help, and we're going to help resolve this. So continue this action, continue this effort to help the city and the businesses. And when it comes time, we're willing to invest our own money to protect our property, to prevent future flooding. We need support. We don't want to be told we got to get a $30,000 engineering firm to tell you if it's going to displace water. Yeah, it's going to displace water if we put something around our porch or put up different doors. We want to displace the water out of our businesses, out of our homes. The whole point is to displace the water into the systems that it needs to go into. So we need that support. When we call the engineering department or the building and planning department, we need support. We don't need to be told, oh, well, it floods. That's what happens. And if you want to do something, you go to the EPA or you call a civic surveying engineering firm. We need support all around, and that's where I'm at.
And I'm certainly not saying this to make light of anyone's situation, but we've been having torrential, crazy rain all over this country. Oklahoma's had massive flooding. Texas has had massive floodings. Louisville. So it's not just something that we're having to deal with.
I agree.
And what's causing all this, I don't know.
But also, as the city manager spoke earlier, and experience from my time as on city council in Mayfield, cities take proaction to those
right,
results.
And that's what we're doing.
Red Duck Creek was flooding. They called in the Corps of Engineers, and they fixed that problem. They widened it, they deepened it, they rip-wrapped it, and guess what? It don't flood anymore. When we're told that the city can't afford it, that's gonna rile everybody. That can't be the answer. That can't be the result. Bowling Green, Louisville, Evansville, all these cities that you addressed, Cape Girardeau used to flood all the time. They concreted theirs. There's ways to fix it. And so you're right. This happens all over. And we're asking you as taxpayers, take this money that could be better spent than a boat ramp and put it into our creek systems, our sewer systems, or whatever it may be.
I have to say something there.
Okay. But
it bothers me when people come to us, and I know they're angry about their situation, but when we have money that comes through us through grants that can only be used for one specific thing. I don't want you all to be angry at us because we can't take that money and put it somewhere else.
But the average taxpayer doesn't understand that.
That's what I'm trying to explain here tonight. We can't take that amount of money and put it somewhere else. It's like,
Can you get grant money for the storm drains?
but we.
Money for these people
But we can, yes, we can work on that, but just, it's when you say, well, you're building that boat ramp. Yes, we want to build the boat ramp. We want to upgrade our storm sewers. Yes, we want to do both.
Well, Mayor Kayla, I was told on 21st Street that the reason, you know, even when they did the television interviews and everything, they went back behind 23rd Street. So a person that just lived in that area came over, brought me some of my stuff that had went in his yard, and he told me, he said, well, you know, they interviewed everybody, but they didn't interview anybody from 23rd Street. And I said, well, why? He said, because they promised 2 years ago, now this is what I was told.
Someone's saying they did interview them.
Okay, but anyway, they said, the person told me that the city had promised to come and put in drainage. I have no drain system. I don't have any. I'm right on the corner, so it hits me, and it runs like down the street, turns in front of my house, goes all the way down. And it's just a sewer. Yeah.
Well, and I want you all to know that I have a friend that lives on Clay near Laclede, and she has been flooded 3 times since I've been mayor. So I've been mayor 3.5 years, 3 years. So that's happened to her 3 times. This time it got up into her house. So, I understand what's going on here. That's why I am working diligently with the commission, with the city manager, with the city engineer for us to get a plan together to make it better here in Paducah.
I'm going to sit down, but before I do, I just want to say, when these events occur, whatever the crisis may be, all I ask as a taxpayer is that the voice of the city is not, we can't. Let's get somebody out there to reach out and say, we can, we will, and that's what we want to do. And listen to us when we call into these departments. Listen, don't dismiss us. Listen to us. Offer solutions, not cut and dry answers to that, so that we can continue to invest our money in Paducah, continue to live here and be proud of living here, and know that our property is protected and that we can count on you when the next event occurs. Because, listen, I don't care if it takes, how long it takes to fix this, just as long as it's done before the next flood. So.
That may be next week.
That's exactly right.
Sir, what did, just,
I'm not going to complain. I was the lucky one this week.
okay.
I came here to support my neighbors. I didn't have any damage. But what makes me furious is that you've got garbage trucks down there. In 1985, when every house in the neighborhood was flooded, the city came, they told us, all you've got to do is get those carpets and things. There was mattresses, there was carpets and everything on the side of the street. Nobody had to pay a penny for picking that stuff up. And my neighbors on fixed income is having to pay the city to pick up their mess from their houses. And I am very angry about that. I've never lost a thing, not a penny's worth of anything. But my neighbors have been suffering, and I'm very upset that they're having to pay.
Well, listen, I'm going to ask the city manager tonight, everyone that had to pay to have their stuff picked up during this flood, I'm sorry, that's not right.
I thought we did waive it.
We
No, if
Look. We waived it.
then tell me what's going on here.
I've approved several days ago a waiver of that, so anybody that's incurred those expenses will take care of it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry.
Just time out. Shh. What? Okay. No, I do not. I'm very lucky.
I know.
Yeah. It's some.
I'm serious. I'm sure that others
No, I do not.
than me have wondered, and guess what? I do remember the 1937 flood, because I didn't like sitting on that bucket.
But I will tell you, when I lived on Alban Barkley, I did have water in my house. And it's because our lot sloped this way, and all the water came down the middle of the lot like a river. So I do understand. We did have water in our house, so I certainly understand. I want you to know that. So did everyone hear what the city manager said? No. Okay, he's going to repeat it again.
Again, the educational challenge and this kind of thing is there, but we did approve. I authorized that several days ago now, so I'm sure that we can try to backtrack in the office for those who may have heard otherwise before that was done. But to be absolutely sure, you give us a call and mention to us that, you know, this the information you had predated, you know, the decision we made to grant the waiver. We've also are waiving any fees for any building permits associated with any kind of rebuilding that needs to take place to deal with flood damage as well.
So let me translate for the city manager. If you were charged,
Yes.
if you were charged, we will pay you back. You have to let us know, though, okay?
I was told that from 23rd Street on back, it's not a flood zone, so it wasn't a flood.
Cannot buy flood insurance.
Let me address the.
Do you know about the flood insurance?
Let me.
That's okay. That's one of the things in the plan that I was talking to you all about that educates the public on everything that's available. It's also on flood insurance, who qualifies, how you can get it, how much it costs, and that's in that comprehensive plan that I talked about with emergency management that we also need to get together to educate the public.
They won't pay, they won't help. Well, we consider it a flood. I was told to tell them that it was a disaster. And they came back on me again and said, well, water is a disaster, so we're not going to pay it.
Mayor
Yes.
Commission, I'd like to address a couple of things to help these people. One, we had several areas of town that did experience flash flooding that are not at all in a flood zone. It's because the system would not handle the capacity. Pizza Inn, Park Avenue, all those are not in a flood zone, but they suffered flooding. Okay, and we have that probably in several areas of town that have not been mentioned here tonight. I want to go back to the charge thing. You all are charged on that through the solid waste fund on the water bill. We have ways of communicating with the water company that we can take that billing off. They will never be billed for it, even though we may have given notification initially through our clerical staff that typically picking up that is a PayPal. I went to the city manager's office early and said, hey, this is a situation. These people are hurting. We need to waive this. Okay, he gave that authorization, then that ceased. You will not see, what I will do through this meeting, you will not see any of those charges on your water bill because we can trace that back to the 7th, July the 7th, and then if there was any phone calls made into the office, we can make sure that we can trace those calls back. And in the event that you do see a charge on your water bill, please let us know so we can get that credited back to you.
I don't see any reason why we can't pick up transfer. You took it to the transfer station. Just
Well, just
produce those for us and
just
get them
give
to
us
us.
the receipts, okay?
It's the same. Rick, who designates flood zones?
Time out. I need.
Please.
Just a moment, Rick's going to answer that question about flood zone.
For everyone here tonight, the federal government designates the flood zones. The City of Paducah has no control whatsoever on that through FEMA. FEMA develops what they refer to as firm maps, flood insurance rate maps, and our maps were just recently updated in November of 2011. The last update was in 1982, so those maps were just recently updated in the last 4 years. But again, we, the City of Paducah, nor the state of Kentucky, has anything to do with that. That is conducted by a federal agency through FEMA.
Okay, we're going to have to wrap it up, but here's what I want to do. Anyone that didn't get to speak and has a question that they need to have addressed, Rick and Chief Kyle will be here to talk with you. We're going into executive session. And if you have any other questions that you have not had answered in a few days, I'll give you my personal cell phone number. It's 270-556-7218. And you can call me anytime. I don't go to bed until 10 o'clock at night. I get up at 5 in the morning. So you're welcome to call me. So Rick, 270-556-7218. Okay. So you all are welcome to stay here and meet with Rick and Chief Kyle. Will you meet with Rick? So anyone that has any questions, they'll be here to talk with you. Uh-huh.
We filed claims. Some of us did anyway. How soon will we know anything from this claim?
Jerome Mansfield could tell you that.
You mean with the city's insurance carrier, KLC? You filed with the city's insurance carrier?
Yes, I
Okay. I tell you,
She came out there, I don't know, she sort of made a joke of things when she came out there. I wasn't mad.
Did our people go out there?
She was like, wow.
well, I would hope that they would have.
Wasn't too, feeling, act like she didn't really care.
Okay, I'll grab somebody and put them in touch with you right now.
Okay, Mayor, my question is, from here, where do we go?
From here?
From here, where do we go?
What do you mean?
Yes. What's going to be the next step? Are you going to
The
form?
next step is to look at our storm management plan.
Okay.
Come up with a new plan, an enhanced plan on how much it's going to cost and when we get started.
Okay.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Okay, we do have an executive session, so Commissioner Rhodes, I think you have that.
I'll second it. Go ahead.
Which one is it?
Oh.
Personnel.
Not get marked.
Personnel.
Bottom,
Ah,
right there.
Yes.
okay. I move that the board go into closed section for the
Here's the
discussion of matters pertaining to the following topics: issues which might lead to the appointment, dismissal, or disciplining of an employee as permitted by KRS 61-810-1-F.
Second. Okay, good luck. Call and report it.
City Clerk.
Commissioner Abraham.
Aye.
Commissioner Gall.
Aye.
Commissioner Rhodes.
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson.
Aye.
Mayor Kayler.
Aye, and we will not be coming back, so meeting's adjourned.